Chat with Shepherd Insurance Partners. This week's guest is Caroline Shroyer with Grove City Tree Service. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, it's great. On this beautiful rainy day, right?
Yes.
Ironic we're talking to a tree service. So with spring here, it's time to start going out in the yard and looking around to the damage that winter has done. That's why we asked Caroline to be our guest this week. And I guess, Caroline, first question we should ask is tell us a little bit about Grove City Tree Service. Who are you?
Well, Grove City Tree Service was founded by my father, Bill Cassidy, back in 1985. And so we've been in business for 32 years. And the services we would provide is tree trimming and bush trimming and removal and stump grinding.
Okay. So with it getting into springtime, you're probably getting a lot of calls. Is it a good time to mulch around the tree? Is it, a lot of people have the bags and the piles starting to pile up in front of their
Right.
house. So is this a good time to do that?
Well, it is a good time. Everyone wants to spruce up for spring. We do not provide the mulching services ourselves, but we do like to educate because mulching can be damaging to trees.
Sure.
But we do recommend that you mulch around your trees and just give you some tips as to how to do that. You really want to, if you're going to mulch around your trees, you don't want to have mulch more than 3, maybe 3.5 inches deep around the tree. Sometimes you'll see big mounds around the tree. A lot of landscaping companies will do that, and they'll mound around your tree. But what happens if it gets too deep, you get these secondary roots that actually want to grow up, and they'll come out of the ground and grow up into that mulch. So you want to make sure that you're not any more than 3, maybe 3.5 inches deep. You also want to make sure the mulch isn't touching your tree.
Okay.
And I know you'll see a lot of trees, probably most, that have the mulch touching the tree. But you want to make sure that you keep it back from the trunk. Probably about 1 inch or so would be fine, but just not putting it right up against the trunk. Mulching is really a good idea, even though it may sound like it's not a good idea with what I'm saying. But it is a good idea to mulch around your tree because it's going to keep you and your lawnmower and your weed eater away from the tree. Because those can really damage the tree. So if you mulch around it, just make sure you're not mulching too much and you're not getting too close to it.
Sure. So that's in the springtime, we'll see kind of the donut around the tree that I guess just settles down as the spring goes on.
Yeah, if you just do 3.5 inches and no more.
Okay. Perfect. That's a great tip. I've probably been trying to kill my tree for years now.
We love trees, so.
So as I'm going out into my yard, I'm looking up. When's the time to be inspecting the tree and saying, ooh, probably need to call Grove City Tree Service?
Well, spring is a great time to do that. And the reason is because it's before it leaves out.
Okay.
So no leaves on the tree gives you a better visual of the tree. And kind of the things that you want to look for with that is you're going to look for any dead limbs. And right now you do have buds coming on the tree, so you're going to see if there's limbs that maybe they're not getting any buds yet. You want to look for any limbs that may be broken or split. You want to look for any of the bark, if you see bark kind of falling off in any places. If there's any holes in the tree, there's a lot of, we're still dealing with the ash borer, the emerald ash borer. And when they exit the tree, they make holes exiting the tree. So you will see that maybe as well, and you'll see some bark kind of falling off there. But you want to look see if there's any insects. If you see any insects or any kind of webs in the tree or small holes in the tree. And then last thing that I'll talk about is, if you think your tree is leaning, if it looks like it's leaning a little bit, you can look at the ground around the tree, and if the soil seems to be kind of heaving a bit on one side and your tree is leaning, then your tree may be at jeopardy.
Okay. So instead of doing the handyman special and just kind of starting to hack away at the branches, probably a good idea to call you, right?
Yeah, it's a good idea. I mean, we have certified arborists on staff, and we can come out and give you an estimate for it. We can look for some things that we look for also when we're inspecting a tree is if there's limbs that are crossing or touching. So as the tree grows, if it's too close together and we know that it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger, and if we think it's going to grow together, we will recommend removing one of those limbs.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to grow together, and then you're going to get the opportunity for insects and things to get down in between those.
So oftentimes, especially with the newer homes, you see landscaping put up right against the house.
Yes.
From the insurance point of view, we're going, this isn't great because
right.
water and bugs and everything else is getting in there.
Absolutely.
But you guys come out, you don't want to just take trees down. So how do you kind of reconcile that?
No, and a lot of times, yes, people, especially the builders, when landscape first goes in, they want it to look nice, and it looks nice when it first, when they first plant it. But they don't take into consideration a lot of times what it's going to look like later. And sometimes you get, we recommend removing the tree if it's too close to the house and it's interfering with the house. Otherwise, what we would have to do is, we'd have to trim it away from the house, and then you kind of get a flat side that's flat-sided. So it's really up to the homeowner what you want to do as far as that's concerned. But we do like you to, if you're going to plant or replant a tree, that you take into consideration the size it's going to get and keep it that far away from the house.
Okay. How about tree watering? Obviously today we probably don't need to water a whole lot, but...
Exactly, and that's my first tip, is pay attention to the rain. If it's raining, your tree does not need water. But if we'll go through the summer and we have several days, month without any rain, you may want to give a little bit of water. You don't want to necessarily spray it on your tree. I mean, the water is fed to the tree through the roots. So the spraying of the tree does not really work. And if you have an irrigation system, you want to make sure that your little sprinkler heads are not pointed directly at the tree. So we want to water the ground around the tree. We do not want to water necessarily the tree itself. So pay attention to the rain. If you see that you have water kind of pulling up around the tree, then you need to then talk about regrading the soil. So you don't want the water just sitting there. There are some trees like river birch that, they need water and they like water, but standing water is never good.
Okay. Oftentimes summertime comes around. Obviously we're in Grove City. We love our trees here. But I have a couple of trees that they'll grow these little spurts off the bottom. People tell me you have to get those off there. They'll kill the tree, or they'll hurt the tree. Is that the case? Or?
Well, it's suckers.
Okay.
And so the trees, what happens a lot of times, and you'll see that a lot with like pear trees or fruit trees or things, and you do want, they're going to grow another tree. It's just going to keep growing.
Okay.
So so you want to get those off. A lot of times if you see a tree, especially like the emerald ash borer, I'll use that one as a good example, because we can tell when we come out that it's infested with the emerald ash borer and the tree is dying. But people will say, well, but look at all this new growth. Well, the tree has to have leaves to survive. So that's where the leaves are where the whole photosynthesis process, and I'll try not to go into too technical here, but it produces the carbohydrates that are stored, and then that's what pushes the buds out for spring, and you get new leaves. So if there's not very many leaves on the tree, it can't produce enough carbohydrates. And so what happens is the tree says, I'm dying, basically, and I need to produce as many leaves as fast as I can. So the parts of the tree that are still alive is going to just have these little suckers. They're called secondary, but these little suckers that come out because it's trying to live, but it's not going to. Okay,
so new growth is not always good growth.
No, new growth is not always, when you have the suckering, it's not always good. No.
So I know I've referred you to a couple of friends. I know you've been out to my house personally. You've done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of people in Grove City, obviously, they know Grove City Tree Service. And I've seen you everywhere in the city. However, when hiring a tree service, what should we be looking for if we didn't know of the wonderful company that Grove City Tree is?
That's a great question. You want to look at the reputation of the company. And so you can find things online about a company. You can call other people and get recommendations for that. But the reputation is really important. Someone who's been in business that didn't start yesterday is always good. Do they have a certified arborist on staff? Because that means that they care about what they're doing. Not just an arborist, a certified arborist. Because we can all call ourselves arborists. You can call yourself an arborist. But certified arborist is specifically what you're looking for.
Okay.
And then a couple things that we always tell folks is to pay attention and make sure that you're asking for a liability insurance policy certificate.
Yes.
And you're asking,
As I was saying,
yes, and you're asking
Yes.
for your workers' comp certificate, because there's, you know, and I know this is terrible, but you know, we always say there's people out there, especially this time of year, they're knocking on your door, and we call them a truck and a chainsaw. And if they have a truck and a chainsaw, they think they're a tree person, and that's not always the case. So you want to make sure that you're covered if someone is in your yard.
Yeah.
That they're covered and you're covered. And so you definitely want to ask for those things. You can actually get the liability certificate in your name and the address of your property. So I know that that's what we do.
And that's one thing, if anybody ever has questions, bring a tree service or any contractor to your property, and you want to know how to properly protect yourself, you can call Shepherd Insurance Partners. I know with Grove City Tree Service, you don't have to worry about that. They are properly insured and cover everything, including the certified arborist on staff, which was very impressive to me personally. So, appreciate your time today, Caroline.
Thank you.
Hopefully things dry up and you guys can be out working. So it was good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Join us next week for the next Shepherd Insurance Partners Chat. Thank you.